Coming up on the show, rankings, and more week one rankings. Every position, every ranking debated with Jake Ciely from The Athletic. Hit the description for the time codes for the positions, for the links to the ranks, for everything you need to know. Plus, there are giveaways at the beginning. And give the episode a like because we're back. Football is back. This is the Pat Mayo Experience.
Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. The time is here. Week one rankings debate. In the future, the show is going to be coming out on Tuesday evenings. But for, it's week one. We're all ahead of the game here. The waiver wire show is generally going to come on Mondays. But today, we have the week one rankings. Jake Ciely from The Athletic will be joining me to break down the entire positional slate. But I do have some giveaways I want to get to first. On last week's show, I mentioned that gupscorner.com is running this gigantic spread pick and pool. It's $100 to enter. So if you want to go to gupscorner.com and check that out, I'm in it. We'll see if we can get Ciely into it, but someone who is in it with a free entry because they won the draw is Joshua Riddell, at Joshua_Riddell on Twitter. You are the winner of the $100 entry into the Super 7 contest from gupscorner.com. Basically what it is, it's sort of like the mini version of that super contest you always hear about in Las Vegas. Instead of $1,500 to enter, it's $100 to enter. Instead of 5 picks, you make 7 picks against the spread every single week, and you compete for a big prize. Right now, there's over 800 people signed up so far. That'll probably double. The deadline is Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so we get up over 1,000. I mean, it's a juicy sized pool you got coming your way for the first place champion, so it's already bigger this season than it was last season, and the guys at gupscorner.com run a fantastic pool, so you want to go check that out. But I got more giveaways for you if you want it out there. So step one, here's one thing you can do if you want to get in a draw for 20 DK dollars, which I'll announce next week, so you can get in the week 2 contest, potentially a millionaire maker for the $20. So there you go. Give the episode a like, go to the comments section, and put in your DK handle, plus the ranking you disagree most with on this show today. Boom, that's one way to do it. The second way to do it, probably the easier way to do it, because fewer people will actually try this out, go to Instagram. Follow my Instagram account at ThePME, and I posted a picture of me right before the show. I'm actually not in the picture. It's a picture of the set. Below that, put your DK handle in, and boom. You give a heart to the picture as well, and you're in the draw there. I'll announce that winner on Monday's show as well. I do want to tell everyone that this week, rankings today, DK pricing tomorrow, spread picks on Wednesday. Still going to do golf, still going to do MMA. Then, the big thing, live Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel till 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The Pat Mayo Experience will be live. Gary and Thorne will be in studio. Cust will probably be on the line. We'll be breaking down all the news, the inactives, and taking your questions so you can set your lineups before the Week 1 kickoff. There's also a Friday show with like DraftKings ownership and injuries too. That'll come out in the afternoon. You can listen to that on or watch it on Saturday morning. And then next week, Jake Ciely will be live with me 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel to break down the waiver wire because, hey, we're back into full swing of things. Jake, I'm going to bring you in. What's going on, buddy? Pumped?
Are you sure that we got another 10 minutes of stuff here?
What? Hold on. Do you think I have guys ranked incorrectly? Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it. The schedule, some giveaways. Boom. I think we got it. Oh, if you want to become if you want to sign up for week 1 and get like all the like tools you need to compete on DraftKings and daily fantasy, dailyroto.com does have a free thing on the go. I'll have Mike and Drew on tomorrow to break down the entire slate. But if you go there right now and pump in the code ThePME, you do get 10% off. So I guess I should let people know that too, right?
I guess so. So I wasn't kidding. Apparently there was more.
There was. And thank you for jarring my memory. I didn't even have that written down. It's just coming back as instinct. You can tell I'm supremely fired up for week 1. We've just been, the foreplay has been like the past 4 months. Now we're here. The drafts are done, hopefully. I mean, I'm sure there's people doing it during the week, but like now we got real stuff to talk about.
We do. I actually have a draft tomorrow night, an auction draft, because Nando DeFino loves doing more drafts. He wanted to throw another one right before the season started with that whole vampire one that somebody had. He's insane.
Yeah, I mean, as my former boss, I can tell you, a little bit insane. No longer my boss, so I can really look into the camera and say, Nando, you're nuts, pal. But
I finally told him no. I was like, dude, I can't.
You can't do this one?
No, I got way too many flipping leagues already. I got like 15 where I have to manage the rosters on top of all the best balls. I mean, the best balls, okay, those are over, but I got a whole spreadsheet for my waiver wire.
Yeah, see, I just tried to really trim it down as much as possible. Just in terms of like actual leagues, I think I'm in like 3 because I want to focus mainly because I want to be able to because I'm going to be live on Sunday mornings. I can't just be making moves and stuff happens. And I have all my DraftKings teams ready to go too. That I'll make my moves in my season-long leagues, but it's the DraftKings stuff that I need to really monitor up until kickoff and lock, just so I'm not screwed in that department.
Oh no, I tried to play that game last year, and there was one where a league where I forgot to swap somebody out who was hurt, and then I did it the same thing on DraftKings. Forgot to go back and check. So yeah, it's probably my league teams are going to be taking the sacrifice for the DraftKings squads.
Well, that's the thing. Like a few years ago, I ended up playing I played 49 leagues one year. That was way too many, and that was just stupid. And then I cut it down to like 15, and even that was still too much to properly compete in some of these leagues. But anyway, enough about this garbage. Let's get into the rankings.
Yeah.
Actually, your podcast that has now dropped. Tell people where they can check it out.
Yeah, it is live, and it's on all the platforms except for Stitcher, I think.
Not Stitcher. You can listen to the Pat Mayo Experience on Stitcher, pal.
No. I think Stitcher, you have to have 5 before they let you upload. That's why. Yeah, you have to give them your RSS feed and all that nonsense. But it's on iTunes, it's on Google Play, it's on TuneIn, and it's getting iHeart and Stitcher are the 2 that you have to have 5 to go, or you can go to Podbean. But I tweeted out, it's All in Sports with Jake Ciely with 8-bit music and an 8-bit logo. If you haven't seen it.
Do you have regular guests on this, or is it just going to be different people all the time? Is it Meanie and Pizza P?
Oh no, different people all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, so the very first episode I brought in Meanie and Joe Pizzapia, of course, for the kickoff show. But Tuesday is Chris Welsh, Thursday is James Coe, and then we're going to start, like I said, just continuing rotating guests.
All right. Time to talk rankings. Let's start running backs, and we'll go to the players that I do not have ranked right now because of injury. So this is a very early injury report. If you want all the rankings, go to dkplaybook.com. You can see the full list, and they'll be updated throughout the week. Obviously, we're recording this on a Monday. What happens right before the Thursday night game? There could be new injuries, and that affects the rankings. But right now, not in the rankings. I do not have Marlon Mack with his hamstring problem or Sony Michel with his knee injury. Yes, Sony Michel has been practicing, but the reports are really murky on that about how much he's actually practicing. Some people are saying he might sit week 1, come back week 2. He could play week 1, but be limited. Until I get confirmation on that, I'm keeping him out of the rankings until the stories flip otherwise. Guys I have in, Jay Ajayi, Rex Burkhead, and Rashad Penny. Donta Foreman's obviously been put on the PUP list, so he won't be back for 2 months or so. Jerick McKinnon, out for the year, suspended. Aaron Jones, and that awful Mark Ingram. So into the rankings, we have Todd Gurley coming in at number 1. These are all PPR rankings, and you can find everything in the description or just tweet it out and everything in there to find the whole list. So Todd Gurley comes in at number 1. Kamara, I had Bell at number 3, but we'll get to him in a second. David Johnson, Melvin Gordon, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Kareem Hunt, Saquon Barkley, and Leonard Fournette is the top 10. So as of Monday morning, Le'Veon Bell has not reported to Steelers camp yet. Now, I believe he has another 2 days to get in there before he can officially practice and play. I don't think that he needs the reps. He doesn't need to learn the playbook. It's not that big of a deal from that front in getting yourself up to speed that he would be just a random inactive. Because, Le'Veon doesn't want to leave those checks on the table. For a guy that complains about money, you think he'd want to play under this franchise tag and make as much as possible. But for him, it's really tricky because we saw this last year when he held out. He only ended up with 13 touches against the Browns. So I'm guessing I have to move him down even if he does play. We all think he's going to play week 1, right?
I still do, but yeah, the touches are concerning because when I talked to Mike Tomlin from a way ago when I interviewed him, he said the biggest thing that he was concerned with week 1 was not his, not knowing the playbook, as you said, was not him being in game shape or whatever. It's the mentality side of it. It's, being able to be out there and know the feeling of getting hit 40 times in a day and just to, wake up in the morning and get your practices in and end the practice in the afternoon or anything like workouts or whatever. It's just the mentality of putting your body through what he has to go through every single day, whether it's the practices, whether it's the actual games. So that's his concern. And I think we saw that to what you just said last year when he only got 13 touches in week 1 against the Browns, that we're probably going to see something similar this year. I'm with you. I put it on a 10% chance that he actually sits out week 1 because that's a hefty game check. And as you said, somebody complaining about money. The only thing I think is that the 10% is because he's a free agent next year. And he's like, you know what? Screw you guys. I don't want you driving me into the ground anyway. I'm only going to play my 10 games or whatever it has to be for me to get free agency anyway. And that's the 10% slim chance. But I think he's going to be out there. And with those 13 touches in the back of your mind, they are Le'Veon Bell 13 touches, but you do have to slide him back a little bit.
Okay, so let's just pretend like he doesn't play for a second. Would you go Connors or James Conner, or would you go Jalen Samuel? Because I would go Connor.
I would go Connor as well.
But
the people need to remember.
Go
What?
ahead. I don't think that he's like a bell cow if he gets in there. He might play like 65% of the snaps, but I don't think that he's like an automatic top 10 back.
No, I think he would lead the way. He'd be the favorite for the goal line touches, but Jalen Samuels will be mixed into enough that I'd say probably at best case you're hoping for a 60-40 split. Might even be like 55-45, but at that point, James Conner would be the RB2. There's no question about it. Samuels would probably get into that fringe flex value.
Fringe flex value, I just think you probably, if you had Le'Veon Bell, you'd probably have to plug Connor into that spot. But I think in the overall set of rankings, like even when you like drop down a little bit, it's like, would you play Peyton Barber or James Conner? I'd probably still play Peyton Barber in that spot.
I would definitely lean to Peyton Barber, especially because Ronald Jones has looked abysmal. There's not anybody who's had a worse preseason than him. But yeah, keep going down the list. I'd go further. I'd start talking about James Conner in front of Bilal Powell. Actually, I think the bigger conversation would be, do you play Alfred Morris or James Conner type of situation?
Yeah, so that means he's not even necessarily even an RB2. He could have that upside, potential RB1 upside, but just in terms of safety, I think he's like a flex play, essentially.
Yeah, that makes more sense than looking at the names, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Le'Veon Bell then. Let's say he reports on Wednesday, hey, Le'Veon Bell is going to play. It's all good. Those 13 touches stick out in the back of everyone's mind. So what do we do with him? How far should we drop him down? Because originally, if he's just going to play, I had him at number 3 for the week. And realistically, the top 10, well, I guess here's the question. If Le'Veon Bell plays, you have to play him, right?
Absolutely. There's no question.
So it doesn't matter where he's ranked, because there's no way that you have Le'Veon Bell and 2 other guys inside the top 10. If you did that, you probably have a really weird draft strategy. Or
you're in an 8-team league, maybe. I mean, look, there's people who are tweeting me in a 10-team league where Antonio Brown fell to the second round. And this is the stupidity that you see. And this is why I tell everybody, but it's too late now because the drafts are mostly over. But you never know what's going to happen in your draft where they're like, oh, I'm targeting blank in second round. That's why you never know, because there's crazy people in every single league. But unless you're just in a stacked squad where it was 8-team and you went running back, and like maybe you're Le'Veon Bell, Saquon Barkley somehow fell to the second round. I don't know. I don't see a scenario out there where you have those kind of running backs, because I mean, look at the list right now. You go down to Kenyon Drake might be your second or third running back, even if you're stacked in an 8-team league. And at that point, I'm still starting Le'Veon Bell.
And when we go back and look at that Browns game from week 1 last year, the touches just might be a weird aberration. Maybe they didn't want to get him into too many collisions to get him warmed up. But he did play 72% of the snaps in the backfield. So even if that just repeats itself and he plays 70% of the snaps, he's going to be like one of 10 guys in football who plays that many snaps at running back in week 1. So he's still inside the top 10. You're still playing him. It just sucks because he might, like you said, touch the ball 13 times. But those 13 touches could be good enough.
Yeah, so he's still inside the top 10. No, there's no question about it.
Yeah, so would you go Hunt or Le'Veon Bell?
I'd probably go Hunt.
Fournette or Le'Veon Bell?
I would go Fournette. So your top 10 is like, oh, it's the top 10. We don't ever spend that much time on the top 10. That's the only person that I would actually have ranked higher than you do by a decent amount. I have Leonard Fournette probably about 2 or 3 spots higher than you do, so I'm going Fournette over Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, frankly, I don't, and just the way that I think about the rankings, I don't put a whole lot of thought inside the top 10 because these are the guys that you're playing. Like, what's it matter what order they're in? It's like, oh man, I got a tough decision this week. Am I going to play Bell? I pick 2, Jake. I have Gurley, Bell, and Johnson. Which 2 do I play? It's like, all right, no, that's not a thing that happens. You just play those guys. It's the people down the list that are a bit more important. So let's get to them now that we've cleared up Le'Veon Bell. Number 11 is Alex Collins against the Bills on my list, and especially with Nate Peterman now starting for the Bills. I like this game flow prospect for Alex Collins in the situation. Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Lamar Miller, Devonta Freeman, LaShawn McCoy, Rex Burkhead. Again, that's because I don't have Sony Michel playing. I'd bump down Burkhead a little bit if he played, not a ton. Jordan Howard, Jamal Williams, and Chris Carson come in at number 20. What do you think? Where am I off on here? Do I have Lamar Miller too low? Do I have Rex Burkhead too high? Are you not a believer in Chris Carson? What's your take here on this 11 to 20 range?
That's the one. It's Chris Carson. It's not even just the fact that, like, okay, everybody's going to be like, oh, Jake loves Rashard Penny. Like, that's not even that. It's Rashard Penny's healthy, so he's going to get a few touches. Chris Carson's still going to lead the way. I just drafted Chris Carson in a league myself over the weekend, so it's not anything about that, but it's also facing Denver in Denver against that run defense. I don't feel good about Chris Carson inside the top 20.
I mean, he's number 20. He's a running back who's going to see the majority of the touches on his.
Further.
Would you play? Because the next guy is on the list. Like when we look at it, like Kenyon Drake is at 21. We're not sure of his split. Marshawn Lynch, it's just a tough spot game flow wise up against the Rams. Peyton Barber, yeah, he could be the guy, but I mean, Jaquiz Rogers could be the receiving down back, and if that's a game where Tampa's trailing the entire time, maybe Barber doesn't see the work. I wanted to rank Barber a bit higher because I like Barber, but like I had to calm down a little bit, but. Honestly, like, how far do you go? Like, Chris Thompson, is he going to end up with more touches than Chris Carson? No. But are those touches going to be more valuable? Very much potentially so. But if Carson starts getting work out of the backfield as a receiver, I see no reason why he couldn't be 20. Like, he's a low-end running back, too, this week.
That's fine. I'm going to go a little bit further. I would not start him, or I would not start Chris Thompson over him just because of this whole report that Chris Thompson might not be 100% until November and all that stuff. So I understand you're getting the guaranteed touches versus Chris Thompson. You want to see the explosion in the backfield, and that's what you're hoping for. I mean, we know what that is. You know, any pass catching based running back is going to have that threat, but where it would be was I have Royce Freeman significantly higher than you do at 27. I think he leads that backfield. And I know, look, I could be 100% wrong about that. And just I'm going against what they've been using Devontae Booker as. But Royce Freeman looks better. I think that's just what we see a lot of preseasons is the fact that they use the incumbent and the rookies better and performs better. And then once the season hits, that's who they go to. They're going to go to the person who's performing. So I'm more on Royce Freeman. I would go him higher. I would go Derrick Henry higher. So I would have Chris Carson probably right around where Chris Thompson is, but in front of Chris Thompson.
See, I guess we're on the two sides of the coin as it pertains to Royce Freeman. I listen, if you want to play Royce Freeman, you've obviously spent a lot of draft capital on him. I saw him go in the third round of some leagues over the weekend. Whoa. I was like, what? You're buying a lot of the upside here. Now, he needs to be the guy or he's going to be pitiful on your fantasy roster. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm just kids' gloves, very pensive with Royce Freeman just because the Booker splits do worry me a little bit. I know Freeman has looked better, but that hasn't stopped Devontae Booker from being on the field before.
What do you think worst case scenario is? 50-50?
No, like 60-40. They decide that, hey, like let's say the game script doesn't go as planned because a lot of people think that Denver is going to beat down Seattle. If this becomes,
well, that's where I was going.
Yeah, like if that's the case, then you might see like a 50, and you might even see a 55% for Freeman, and he can gain a lot of his yards on the ground. But I think that the Seattle offense is still going to be fine. They're going to be able to compete at least offensively. I don't know if they can hold up defensively in this situation, but if the game remains close and passing remains something that Denver needs to do, you're going to see Booker on the field a lot.
See, I think it's the other way around. Like if you were told me who got the bigger split, it would be Freeman. But again, we can't force the hand. Go back to Kenyon Drake. I mean, we can say, look how great he is. Why do you guys keep hating this guy and want to give touches to freaking Frank Gore and all the rest of them and Kalen Ballage? And I just don't understand it. But I think these things change when you get to the season and people start performing. And maybe week one is the evidence that these teams need. Maybe we need to see Frank Gore have nothing left. Maybe we need to see Devontae Booker outplayed by Royce Freeman. And there's the threat of the first week. I don't think there's a guarantee that Chris Carson has that kind of workload either. So between the two, I like Royce Freeman more than I do Carson by game script and by talent.
Listen. I think that we can make a bet on this if you'd like, but I think that you can basically pencil in Chris Carson for over 60% of the snaps week one, and you can't say that about Freeman.
I don't know. CJ Prosise is healthy as of right now. I just think there's a lot in that mix.
All right, maybe they could split out CJ Prosise wide and have Carson on the field at the same time.
They could. That doesn't mean they use Chris Carson though.
It doesn't, but that doesn't mean they use CJ Prosise either.
All right, so what do you say? 60% of the touches out of the backfield?
No, 60. I say he'll play over 60% of the offensive snaps.
I don't care about the snaps.
I care about the snaps. I want him to be on the field to have the opportunity to touch the ball.
But we just talked about it with the Le'Veon Bell situation. I don't care about the snaps. I talk about the touches. Like, so you say Chris Carson split out wide or split out in backfield with CJ Prosise on the line. Well, yeah, okay, they're both on the field. That doesn't count for what my point is. I'm talking about the touches, and that my concern is that the touches are going to be there for Freeman more than Chris Carson because of the game script.
All right, I will just bet you that Carson gets more touches than Royce Freeman does. All right, that's easy.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Deal. We'll discuss terms off air on this one. All right, good. We're getting into the flow. This is week one. We're already smashing back into this. Is there anyone else you want to talk about in that 11 to 20 range before we move on? Like I downgraded Dalvin Cook to 13 as a running back 2. We're talking about this from a 10-team perspective only because it's week one back. It appears to be healthy, but this is a situation where if Minnesota can jump up on San Francisco. We might just see Latavius. I think that Latavius Murray is going to be a bigger part of this offense the first few weeks than people may think. And Cook will get better as the year goes along. But again, I'm just going to lay back a little bit because I want to see what that workload looks like.
I agree with you. I think it's a legitimate concern, and not because Dalvin Cook's not amazing, and not because Dalvin Cook can't handle it, but this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And if you want Dalvin Cook for the Super Bowl, we're probably going to keep him in check a little bit to make sure that he doesn't run down before the end of the season, because technically he still hasn't, well, not technically, it's truth. He hasn't played a full NFL season yet. And we've seen a lot of rookie running backs who wear down at the end of the NFL season, let alone one coming off an injury. So I'm with you. I do think there's a concern for the first few weeks, which also presents in your seasonal leagues a buying opportunity if Dalvin Cook comes out of the first 3 games with like 60, 70, 60 yards, no touchdowns, or just a quiet kind of games. It's going to be a great buying opportunity. The only other one I'm concerned about a little bit is just, oh, wow. If it wasn't for, okay, there's 2. If Joe Mixon wasn't facing the Colts, I'd feel worse about him because his preseason was miserable, and that offensive line still looks like it's doing him no favors.
But you know that I, like, coming into the drafts, I was really down on Joe Mixon, but this is a glorious matchup.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I said, if it wasn't for the fact he's facing the Colts, so that's a whole nother situation. It's the LaShawn McCoy one, because we're talking about Nathan Peterman. We're talking about game script. Like, LaShawn McCoy's not 100%. I've been somebody who's been drafting him at the end of the second, early third round. It's not that, but this week 1 is going to be telling. My biggest argument is going to be he's their entire offense. You run the offense through LaShawn McCoy. If they start getting blown out and he comes off the field, it wouldn't surprise me. That would be a real kind of a shot to the gut there for the people who own LaShawn McCoy in a lot of places like I do. But what I'm saying is this is setting up as a week that we might have a real tell on how they treat LaShawn McCoy for the entire year. If they're up by a lot and he only gets 13 touches, if they're down by a lot and he only gets 13 touches, or if the verse side of it is that like he gets all of them, he's still taking 20 touches no matter what the score is.
The biggest thing that I worry about with this is if this game gets out of hand, because maybe Peterman's like fine, and this is just all a big rope-a-dope. They put him in that game last year to make us think he wasn't super good. Like, throw as many picks as possible, man. Everyone will think you're terrible. No one will want anything to do with you, and don't worry, you'll be starting week 1. It's all fake news out there. Don't believe it, and you're actually great.
Is this Ocean's 11 with the long con over here?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I doubt the Bills have that sort of guile and savvy, but maybe
that music, and then you see him like walk behind the scenes while the camera's panning the other direction, and it's actually a swap of the quarterbacks, and it's been somebody else in the jersey the entire time.
Listen, this just could be a 2 decades long con from the Buffalo Bills. They just duped us all in when it came down to it. But in that game last year with Peterman when he played the Chargers, and that was not a great situation for him to play the league's best pass rush. However, LaShawn McCoy came out of that game because they were getting beat down so much. But Traveris Cadet had 6 catches in that game. And I just see, not that the Baltimore pass rush is like out of this world tops in the league. They're going to get to Peterman. I can just see a lot of dump offs to McCoy. And right. I don't envision, unless the defense does a lot of scoring or Alex Collins goes nuts. I like Baltimore's offense, but I don't think they're going to drop 50 on the Bills. So if it's a game where it's still manageable, where Buffalo thinks they have a chance to come back, I could just see them being like Shady, and he just picks up 7 catches out of the backfield.
By the way, can you turn that into a little GIF, what you just did?
No, I don't know. I'm not great at GIFs. I'm great at GIFs with other people, not so much for myself.
Or maybe then just a little snippet, so we have the audio too, if you're going shady.
Oh, it would be nice for when he starts racking up all these catches on Sunday. That'd be fantastic.
You could use it. It'd be awesome.
The thing is, are you really benching LaShawn McCoy? We just talked about it.
Yeah.
I know that you talked about touches over snap share. I'm always big on snap share just because you can't touch the ball if you're not on the field. So if you're on the field, great news for you for the opportunity to touch the ball. With Shady, unless it gets out of control or he truly is hurt, he's gonna be one of the highest volume backs in the league this year, presumably. So in week 1, I kind of have to go with what I thought coming into the year.
Right. Let's make that clear. If it hasn't been already, because we've kind of danced around the issue, this is week 1. You're starting the people you drafted. You drafted them where you drafted them for a reason. Unless you drafted 2 months ago and there's been some changes with the teams and there are some situations like that. Otherwise, you draft people inside the top 5-6 rounds, they're in your starting lineup. Just keep them there. This is where people get too cute and they end up watching the big scores on their bench. Yes, some of these people can disappoint. That's why we're having this discussion. But I'm looking right now all the way down to running back 18. There's not even a question, because Jordan Howard is who you have at 18. I would have him slightly higher, but I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs there. But anybody up to 18 on your list, of running back 18, needs to be in your lineup. Done story. The rest are the ones we could have the conversations about.
Yeah, I listen, I'm absolutely with you. That's exactly where I had my cutoff too. Everyone down to Jordan Howard is a start. Everyone else, we can debate them all we want. That all depends on personal preference. Like 19, Jamal Williams is sitting right there. I just, like, no Aaron Jones. I don't know how much they're going to use Ty Montgomery. Just seems like a good spot for him. And he was good last year. I feel bad for Jamal Williams. Everyone just thinks he's trash, and he's not. Although this is a bad matchup. I don't know how.
That's the problem.
I don't know how Mac really fits into the Week 1 Bears defense. I assume he's going to be great, but maybe he's not 100% of where he's going to be in like Week 3, Week 4 in terms of getting up to every defensive scheme and every blitz package that's going to come in. But I think that Jamal Williams, like I just talked about with Shady, with a lot of these dump-offs, we could see a situation where if they're pressuring Aaron Rodgers, that Williams could just have 5 catches. And if he has 5 catches, if he has 5 for like 30 through the air, what he does on the ground will be enough to make him a top 20 running back this week because he's going to get opportunities to score touchdowns in this offense.
No, absolutely. There's not a question about that. The work should be there no matter what the situation is. I wasn't really the Mac is obviously a concern for this team going forward. As you said, who knows how effective he's going to be in the defense. I mean, he's Khalil Mack. I mean, he's going to be effective to a degree, but do they kind of not give him a full compliment? Like he's not out there for 100% of the defensive snaps because they're kind of getting worked into the defense or whatever it might be. I'm saying all that to put that aside. Like this was already a bad matchup to begin with the Bears run defense. So that's why I say I'm a little concerned about Jamal Williams as well. As you know this, we were talking about the pre-draft situation there. I see a scenario, and I'm a Jamal Williams fan, where the first 2 weeks he performs mediocre, gets 40 yards and 40 yards, and Aaron Jones comes back in week 3 to a much better situation than he would have had if he was splitting carries this week.
That part worries me, but for now, you have Jamal Williams on your team. I say you play him.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole 21 to 30 range, when we drop down and look at everything, like I mentioned, Kenyon Drake comes in at number 21. Lynch, Barber, Dion Lewis, Derrick Henry. I have them back-to-back because I have no idea. Good matchup for both of them, though. Chris Thompson, Royce Freeman, Jordan Wilkins, Carlos Hyde, Jay Ajayi at number 30. I don't know what's going on with Jay Ajayi, man. Like, he has this foot injury. It's finally revealed that it was a foot injury. It looks like he's going to play, but we already worried about him in just terms of if he was 100% coming into the season, that he would lose work to Clement and Darren Sproles because that's how Doug Peterson runs this offense. It's smart. We've clearly seen that it works. But what do we do with it? Like, would you feel good about starting Ajayi week 1 on any team?
I would definitely not feel good about it. It's so weird. You know, day by day, it's like the reports change on it. It's what we've known this entire time. Doug Peterson, committee backfield. Jay Ajayi, bone on bone, looked not 100%. I told you that last week. The playoffs, he looked like he had a hitch. He's not 100%. He's already missing time in preseason this year. And everybody's like, oh, I'm going to still draft him inside the top 40 overall. That makes sense. And then we get this. We all have all these concerns. The team doesn't know if he's healthy. And then a few days ago, they go, oh, Jay Ajayi is fine. He's going to be the workhorse. This is the first time that Doug Peterson's had somebody he can give a workhorse to. And I feel like that report was just kind of somebody out there wishing and hoping. Maybe he covers the team and has Jay Ajayi and a bunch of his. I don't see it. I don't see Jay Ajayi getting the kind of workhorse role, especially in week 1, because he hasn't been healthy. I just don't see the logic behind. Let's say, even if Jay Ajayi was a workhorse this season, like you still go into this game. It's kind of like the Sean McCoy thing. If you're not 100%, are you going to come out and give him 25 touches out of the gate when he's been battling injury up until week 1? So that's where I just don't understand it. I could see a scenario where you're not starting Jay Ajayi, but it's going to be hard to do. You're going to have to kind of almost grit your teeth and bear it.
Jordan Wilkins, I have coming in at number 28. The rumor mill is saying that he will start if Marlon Mack is out, not Kristen Michael, not Nyheim Hines. I don't feel great about
Definitely not Hines.
Yeah, definitely not Hines. I mean, he'll be on the field to fumble, so that's a lot of fun. In terms of Wilkins, I feel like he just take a shot at it. I mean, it's not a horrible matchup against Cincinnati. I do worry that if somehow the Colts get down in this game, which isn't definitely in the cards, but if Andrew Luck is fine, it might not be a big deal. So we like Mixon. Wilkins can just be on the field a lot. I do like that potential here. That's why he's at 28 over someone like Ajayi, because the chance for him to seize this role, at least in the context of week 1, over Michael, over Hines, is there if Mac doesn't play.
He is. That's if Mac is completely out. I think that's going to be a tough toss-up for me between Ajayi and Wilkins, and that's where I'll let my projections decide for me. But I could see that being a decent. I think this is going to sound crazy. I actually think that between the two, Wilkins is the safer. With Ajayi, he's got the higher ceiling.
I don't know if Ajayi has the higher ceiling though. That's the problem. Like
If-
I don't know how much run that he's, because you have to factor in like injury concerns with Ajayi as well. That has to limit what his ceiling is.
Yeah, well, so that's what I was saying now. Is like I just go back to everything else. That's why I said it was going to sound crazy. But the fact is like, what if Jay Ajayi is fine and they just held him out all this time just to be safe? Like, just, you know what? It's kind of something that you would probably play through in the regular season, and you're fine for now. Let's go out there. You're our best option. And Doug Peterson finally does have a bell cow that he's never had before. I don't believe that. I'm just saying, if that scenario were to present itself, he has the higher ceiling where he could come out with 120 yards and a touchdown, where Wilkins, no matter what, even if Mack is out, is going to share a little bit with Michael. And as you said, with Hines in the passing game until Hines fumbles the ball again. But even as so, to start the game, he's going to share more in that scenario.
I have Carlos Hyde at number 29. I feel like I should have him higher. I'm just not feeling it that much this week. Against Pittsburgh, it's a weird matchup. It feels more like not that he'll end up with fewer carries than Duke Johnson. I just see Duke Johnson being used a lot this week.
Oh, that's the bigger issue. Is I think that Duke Johnson might actually have the better game. He's arguably the best pass catching running back, if not inside. He's the top 3 in the league. And as you mentioned, this is a game against Pittsburgh. Probably going to have to be aggressive. Could be down early very easily. No matter how good people think the Browns' defense is and how much is improved, this is still the Steelers. This is still the Steelers who know how to play the Browns. And, watch, this is going to end up being like a 7-3 game and tick us all off. But I think that Duke Johnson is going to probably get a little bit more run in this game just because of the matchup.
I have Duke Johnson very close behind in this next range, 31 down to number 40. I have Adrian Peterson at number 31. Matt Breida at number 32. Obviously, Cherry McKinnon out for the year. We kind of missed that as it happened over the weekend. Coleman, the Duke, Johnson, 34, James White, Alfred Morris in that San Francisco backfield, Bilal Powell, Ty Montgomery, Austin Eckler, and Tariq Cohen. You're getting kind of desperate if you're down in this range, and this is where you're playing. I do like Duke's upside. Obviously, with Coleman, it just depends on the split that week. You can never peg when it is. I like Breida more than Morris this week just because I think they're going to be throwing more, and it does appear like Morris might end up with like 15 carries, but we know the Alfred Morris track record of the guy's not going to catch passes out of the backfield. The only thing that I worry about with Breida, because people have been talking about, it's like, oh, he'll play third down passing situations. Kyle Shanahan doesn't hate throwing to fullbacks, and Kyle Juszczyk, he's someone who catches passes out of the backfield.
I thought the same thing. So for two things is one, I was surprised that where my projections ended up putting Alfred Morris for the entire season was inside the top 30 running backs.
That's pretty good. In a standard league, he's going to be a good start most weeks.
He is. And that's with not even 900 rushing yards. It's just 800 and then 4 or 5 touchdowns, but that puts you inside the top 30 because he's going to have that job. I'm with you on Matt Breida, especially this game. You should see more Matt Breida, but to your point, and also the fact that is Breida 100%? Breida has been dealing with injuries. He said he's returned to practice, but how effective he's going to be, as you say, with Juszczyk, this is somebody who's been involved just years past with other options, with Carlos Hyde there healthy. Like, there's been options on this team where they still have used Juszczyk without the question of somebody who can't pass catch and somebody who hasn't been healthy up until this past week. So I'm with you. I don't think it's a lock where there's a lot of people that are talking Matt Breida up like he's Duke Johnson, and I don't think he's that high yet.
No, I don't think so either. I think that the potential for this game, the big difference between the two right now is depending on the situation of the game and how Morris and Breida both perform, Breida can still get like 8 carries too if it comes down to it. You just rarely see Duke Johnson ever pile up those rushing attempts where I think that's on the table for Breida. So like when you think about the long game of it all, if he's on the field and has the potential to rush the ball, he might sneak a goal line carry or two where that just never happens with Duke Johnson.
All right, then there's no question about that. And also to talk about the 49ers just as a whole is I think some of the ancillary pieces could be the benefit, like Trent Taylor and George Kittle and stuff, just because of the loss of McKinnon. I don't think McKinnon's entire, we'll say, 55 receptions, maybe 60 over the course of the full season. I don't think all of those are specifically going just to the running backs and Juszczyk.
Agreed. In this 40 range, just all the Lions running backs, since I have no idea what to do with any of them. For PPR purposes this week, I ranked them Theo Riddick, LeGarrette Blount, Kerryon Johnson. But I have no idea. You can talk me into any one of them. You can talk me, well, I've talked myself out of all of them. I think if you're just looking for 8 points from my running back number 41, Theo Riddick's probably the guy. But I think Blount's the most likely to get the goal line touches and score touchdowns.
He is. I'm still going on Johnson, and just because they drafted him young, talent, and everything like that. My biggest concern about this backfield is not even that. Is we're already dealing with this frustration week to week, and LeGarrette Blount he's going to get the goal line and the short yardage carries. There's not a question about that. So you say on Johnson comes in as the Amir Abdullah, who they kept. And I don't want anything to do with this backfield. This is why I was off the entire thing to begin with. But I would still lean towards on Johnson. But as you said, I'm hopefully not having to start any of them.
I guess the big thing for me is when I drop down into this range, it depends on what you want out of your team. If you're a favorite in your game and you think that Theo Riddick's like 7 to 10 points is going to be exactly what you need to pad the back end of your roster, that's why I would go with Theo Riddick there, because I think that his floor is higher than both these guys. Like, Kerryon Johnson could score 20 points. He could score 0 points in this game for all I know.
I don't know if Theo is the guarantee that he has been in years past.
Yeah, he is. People write off Theo Riddick every year, and he's going to be like, oh, Theo Riddick just caught 4 passes for 37 yards.
I don't know if he's getting the same potential workload that he has in years past. I think Kerryon's going to absorb some of that.
He might. But now we're talking about running backs week 1 down in, with no bye weeks, very few injuries down in the 40 range. Like, hopefully you're not playing any of these guys.
Well, I mean, maybe if you lost McKinnon and you waited on running back and you're looking dicey, you might be in that situation.
Last one I wanted to throw out to you. Crowell or Powell? I have Powell at 37,
Powell.
Crowell at 45. I like Powell more, but not like so much more. I'd be like, you got to start Bilal Powell. I've done that before. Did not work out.
I'm starting Bilal Powell over all the Detroit Lions.
So am I. I mean, by the rankings, that's how I have it as well.
And the thing with Bilal Powell is the fact is we looked at the preseason and we're like, hey, you know what? He'll be the pass catcher. Actually, way back before Elijah McGuire got hurt, there was a threat to how valuable Powell was going to be because of Elijah McGuire being very similar to Tariq Cohen. It's like, oh, he's going to take all the passing opportunities away. And if he does, now Bilal Powell, what does he have left? Well, McGuire gets hurt. And then we're like, okay, well, it'll be a 50-50 split. Crowell's the lead guy and the tough yards, and Powell's and then you look at the Jets and what they're doing in the preseason, they were using Powell more with the first team. So there's some inkling here that they might be headed towards Bilal Powell being the lead option, period. Now, Isaiah Crowell would still get the short, like similar to LeGarrette Blount with the Lions. He'll still get all the tough yards, the short carries and stuff like that. But he might be on the bad side. It might be a 60-40 split headed towards Powell.
Let's switch to wide receivers, and I think that almost like we talked about where the first 18 running backs are essentially locks in your lineup, if you have 3 of them, then yeah, maybe you do have some decisions. It works out very much the same way in terms of receivers. So at number 1, I got Antonio Brown because he's Antonio Brown. You're going to put him at number 1. So it's Brown, Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, Devontae Adams, Chris Hogan, Tyreek Hill, Larry Fitzgerald, Mike Evans, Doug Baldwin, Odell Beckham Jr. Bad matchup against the Jags, but he's still Odell. You're playing him. Stephon Diggs, T.Y. Hilton, Marvin Jones, Adam Thielen, Jarvis Landry, Michael Crabtree, and Corey Davis. So the other thing, too, the guys that I have in right now as going to play this week, and you can find this again on dkplaybook.com. It'll be at the top of the column. It'll change when the news changes. I have Doug Baldwin with his knee, gonna play. Nelson Aguilar with the lower body, gonna play. James Washington with his abs, too many abs, he's going to play. He'll be fine. Josh Gordon in the hamstring could be limited, but it does look like he's going to play in week 1. Probably not going to play. Well, Alshon Jeffrey hasn't been officially ruled out yet, but he ain't going to play. And Devontae Parker with this finger injury, I don't know what's going on with him, but I have him as probably not going to play at this point. Jermaine Kearse is out with an abdominal injury, and Julian Edelman is suspended. Is there any other name you can think about injury-wise that is like dicey to play?
No, I mean, you even brought up James Washington. So, I'm the biggest James Washington, well, one of, if not the biggest James Washington fan out there, but I wasn't even thinking of him for seasonal purposes at this point. So you even brought him up. I don't know if there's anybody else left out there.
So with the Gordon thing, actually, let's talk about Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is number 18 in the week 1 rankings. How much do you think that Gordon impacts him this time around? Like, how many percentage of snaps do you think that Josh Gordon's going to play week 1?
I would say it's probably going to be 70 to 80.
All right.
I think the whole, like, he's not starting. I think he's still going to be out there for 50, 55. So, and this team gets maybe 60, 65. So maybe that's more like 80, 85% of the snaps, whatever it might be. I think he's getting in the 50s when you talk about snap total. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I was just going to say he'll play 55 to 65% of the snaps. I have Josh Gordon at number 37. I would be very hesitant to start him if I didn't have to this week. You're always leaving a ton of upside on your bench if you don't play Josh Gordon, but this just seems like a bad situation.
It does, and I know it is PPR, but I'm looking at that, and I'd probably go as high as the 30 range. Like I would have Kenny Stills higher to begin with, but I feel better about Josh Gordon than Cooper Kupp, and I love Cooper Kupp, but it's the Rams with 3 wide receivers versus 2 and the lead option here.
We're also talking about Josh Gordon, who might be on a limited. That's the whole thing. I think it's how comfortable you feel with the amount that Josh Gordon's going to play, because he has the no practice from not being around training camp, and now he has this like hamstring thing that.
Well, of course, you watch this week. If he's practicing tomorrow and everything specifically starts out tomorrow, I would feel really good about him playing this week. And again, I'm going to go back to, I don't think he starts the first series. Well, he's not going to start the first series, but he still gets 55 snaps total, which puts him in, like I said, for me, the 75, 80, 85% range of snaps. At that, Josh Gordon's going to be out there for me unless I'm just stacked at wide receiver, which I would put him, I would even probably go up to that right in front of Devin Funchess, honestly. And I'm been an apologist for Devin Funchess because I'm like, hey, he's the number one option on this team still. And DJ Moore is nice, but he's still the number one option on this team in Devin Funchess. But I would probably go Gordon over Funchess.
Well, how would that affect the Jarvis Landry ranking then? Would I have to bump Jarvis down? Because I would have ranked him higher if Gordon wasn't playing, obviously. Now you're trying to weight it against each other. There's only so many receptions, so many fantasy points to go around that I feel like you can't put him too highly if you're okay with starting Gordon.
No, I would have Jarvis Landry. Assuming Josh Gordon practices tomorrow and everything's on track, I would put Jarvis Landry down behind Emmanuel Sanders, but in front of Jamison Crowder.
Okay, so he dropped down to like number 27 in the rankings.
Yeah, and basically it's all about target share.
And Gordon would just be coming just behind him.
Yes.
Okay. Was there anyone inside the top 20 that you had real issue with?
No. Well, I mean, I was going to bring up the Jarvis Landry with the Josh Gordon situation. So outside of that, I love Corey Davis. I'm surprised you have him in that high, though.
Why? He's number 20. You're playing Corey Davis.
You are, but I'm just looking at the options behind him. Like, I feel better about Cooper, and I hate, this, I hate Amari Cooper, but you're talking about.
Well, I think the Cooper thing, the volume is going to be there for him. I have ranked number 21, so I'm saying play Amari Cooper, don't bench Amari Cooper unless you're guys ahead of him. It's just this Rams defense. Like, I don't know how good it's going to be. But they can just, with the way that this Raiders offense looks, they can just gear everything to stopping Cooper, and that's the end of it. And with the players that they have on defense, they don't even need to allocate that much manpower to shutting him down.
They don't, but at the same time, so what it comes down to, and you know how I feel fantasy-wise, as I've said this the entire time, like Derek Carr, real-life quarterback, I'd probably take him inside of top 12 as a QB1. Fantasy quarterback's a whole different conversation. He's just not a great fantasy quarterback. Very good, but he's somebody that we're still asking him to throw for 4,000 plus yards. We're still asking him to near 30 touchdowns. He's just not that kind of quarterback yet. But if you still told me Derek Carr versus Marcus Mariota so far, I'm taking Derek Carr. Marcus Mariota, even so far in the preseason, hasn't looked that great. Granted, the change with LaFleur and getting away from that exotic smash mouth is a good thing for the passing game and a good thing for Corey Davis. And you know how much I love Corey Davis. I just going into week one, I just feel better about Cooper with Derek Carr and that offense than I do about Marcus Mariota and Corey Davis. Again, we're kind of nitpicking how close they are, but the reason I say that too is because there's even, between Davis and Cooper, I'm looking at your list, despite being the number 2 on his team. I like Smith-Schuster more. He is the number 1, so I like Demaryius Thomas more. I like Marquise Goodwin more. I like Allen Robinson more. So for me, I would probably group both of them together and drop them down to 5 spots.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that case with Cooper. In terms of Davis, I do really like the matchup up against Miami. I think that Mariota is way better than Derek Carr, so we just fundamentally disagree with that. The target share for Cooper in terms of overall team targets will probably be higher, but I think that you have to it's almost like the Beckham thing, where Beckham would normally be like number 3 or number 4 in the rankings, but he's just walking into a shitty situation. And that's what I feel like Cooper is in comparison to Corey Davis, where even if the amount of targets aren't there, I feel like the targets themselves will just have a higher opportunity to score fantasy points.
And that's definitely fair. And to be honest with you, go back to the running back conversation. I'm looking at your list right now, and you talk about people that you're definitely starting. I'm not going all the way down to 30. I'm going like Golden Tate and Devin Funchess are going to be in my lineup. You're starting 3 wide receivers. There's no way you can bench those guys.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't love Cooks. I don't love Tate this week. Like, I have Marvin Jones at number 16. I have Golden Tate at number 29. And I also have Kenny Golladay ranked.
But what scenario are you benching Golden Tate?
I don't know that you have awesome receivers. I went sort of against the grain in terms of draft strategy. Like, I have teams with really good receivers on them.
Sorry, I was getting a drink of water. I thought you were going longer.
No. But the whole thing is, like, I don't have Golden Tate on any of those teams, so it's not really a decision for me. So trying to think through the context of a roster, you're probably right. You're probably not benching Golden Tate in a PPR format.
Right. And I mean, I'm even looking at my home league where we have keepers in an auction league, and I have Tyreek Hill, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Thomas as my 3 wide receivers, and I'm a little thin at running back, but that's why. So Golden Tate was my 4th even on that team, because my auction league, you know me, I'm the bell cow running back for life, and I do have Kareem Hunt on that team, but because of where the money was going in the auction, I loaded up with more wide receivers, and my running backs are kind of weak. But all that being said, is Golden Tate would still start my flex in that scenario. So that's where I'm kind of saying is, like, even if you loaded up on wide receivers, you're probably weak enough at running back that you're not starting your 3rd running back in your flex. You would start Golden Tate.
Murray Cooper's number 21, like I mentioned. Juju 22, DT 23, Marquise Goodwin 24, Allen Robinson 25. The Colonel, Emmanuel Sanders 26, Jamison Crowder, say it right, 28, Brendan Cooks, 29, Golden Tate, 30, Devin Funchess, Kenny Stills, number 31. Funchess, I'm in on. I just think this is a situation where he's going to have the opportunity to get some red zone work in. I still think that he is the preferred target, although Greg Olsen has looked really, really good in the preseason compared to what we thought he might be, being older, more decrepit, and coming off a foot injury. He looks a lot better than he did at the end of last season, so I still like Devin Funchess, but I'm pensive on him a little bit. Allen Robinson, if I knew that he was going to be like the guy, and you're convinced that he is, that it's not going to be broken up to, like, there's a chance that Trey Burton ends up with more targets than Allen Robinson.
I don't see that scenario.
I do. I can see it. Well, you'd have to give me odds. But
wait. This game or for the season?
I mean, for the season. In this game, it might be Robinson, but
no.
But I mean, who led the Eagles last year in terms of targets? It was Zach Ertz, wasn't it?
If not, I mean, it was close, but we're not talking about Zach Ertz.
No,
we're not talking about Alshon Jeffrey.
But we're okay. I understand that, but in terms of like how this offense is out, like you see, you're gonna have Allen Robinson on the outside. Trey Burton's like never going to actually play tight end. He's gonna just line up on the line of scrimmage and then go out wide, and he's going to essentially be a receiver on almost every single play. Then you have Miller there. You still have Taylor Gabriel. You have Cohen out of the backfield. With the way that the distribution and targets in the Bears offense goes, I could just see Burton being the reliable one because he's going to be the one running these like 8 to 12-yard routes, not Allen Robinson, who you would think presumably is going to just have a much higher ADOT, therefore see fewer work through the air.
Yeah. So by the way, I looked it up. Jeffrey had 120. Ertz had 110. So
Okay.
That's close. I think that's best case scenario for Burton is that to see that kind of target share with Allen Robinson getting that. And that's because Allen Robinson, I think too many people are just writing him off, whether it's the injury, whether it was the frustrations before he got injured with the connection with Blake Bortles. I mean, look, Allen Robinson was ticked off as anybody at Blake Bortles and like yelled at him on the field. I mean, we saw the clip on the sidelines in the practice the one day where he was talking about stuff about him. So the truth is Allen Robinson should see 20 to 23% of the target share. Trey Burton, for me, is not getting to that. And I understand, like, I am excited about Trey Burton, especially now that Shaheen is starting the year on the PUP. So I think he's out for, the first 6 weeks? Did he officially go on the PUP? I forget. Or is he just banged up? Or do you not know?
I didn't see it. The only thing I'm seeing right now is that Marlon Mack is not practicing on Monday.
Okay. Well, I'll look in the meantime. But I think Shaheen's going to miss at least a couple games.
Sorry, I didn't realize you said Shaheen. I believe he was put on IR, like the PUP IR.
Okay,
either the 6 week or the season long, one of the two. He's on one of them.
So the season with you're allowed to return. Either way, so okay, it's at least 6 weeks. So that's great for now. Trey Burton's not coming off the field. Like he's just going to be out there forever. But I still you're asking a tight end to lead the offense. That's not Gronkowski. That's not Kelsey. I just don't see it. But this is you know what? This is the reason to be excited about both of them. I think Allen Robinson and Trey Burton are both terrific players this year.
All right, so I mean, I still have him as the lowest end wide receiver too. You could have 24. Like you said, he's not a sit in this situation. Would you go Goodwin over Garcon like I have?
Yes.
By as big of a margin, I have Goodwin at number 24. I have Garcon at 37.
No, I would not have had that big of a gap because I wouldn't have Goodwin as high against the Vikings in Minnesota.
I think that Marquise Goodwin just might be a talent and someone they try to get the ball to here.
They can, and they can try to get the ball to him, but this is the Vikings defense. And here's the scenario with this is the frustration with Goodwin on the good side. I guess you could say a good frustration is that this is a bad matchup. This is a matchup where I would consider him wide receiver 3. Goodwin, because of his big playability, could come out of this game with 3 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. So didn't do a whole lot because he still only has 3 catches, but one of those catches could be that big of a play where he ends up being almost a wide receiver 1. So it's hard for me to bench Goodwin. I'm just saying in this matchup, looking at some of the names that I'm looking at my name comparison of what I'm starting with so far this week and what you have. And I feel better about Emmanuel Sanders. I feel better about Jamison Crowder. You're not as high as, but I feel better about Golden Tate. And this is because it's PPR. I just feel better about those names in PPR. Non-PPR, I would probably have them in a similar spot than you do. But to go back to the question to begin with, a month ago, I would have said the exact opposite in PPR, and I was very high on Pierre Garçon. But the usage, the connection, I mean, just look at the preseason numbers. Garoppolo went to Goodwin a ton and barely went to Garçon.
Yeah, and this is one of the things, too. Like, we had obviously the preseason is not the end-all, be-all. There's going to be stuff that happened in the preseason. You're going to be like, oh, that was stupid, we thought that. And the same thing is going to happen from week 1 to week 2. Stuff is going to happen in week 1. Teams are going to look awesome in week 1 that aren't actually very good. It happens every single year. Teams are going to be crap in week 1 and completely shit the bed. And then by week 2, they're going to have it all figured out, and you're going to be like, oh, I was stupid for not thinking that. So is this the best trade week of the year, do you think? Like, the reactions to the first week? Because, like, if Garçon comes out and has, like, let's say, because where you mentioned it's a bad matchup for San Francisco, but let's say the Vikings dedicate their secondary to stopping Goodwin and not Garçon. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. Let's say it does. And Garçon ends up with like 14 targets and like 7 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. And Goodwin has like 5 targets, ends up with like 2 catches for 34 yards. People are going to freak out next week. Everyone's going to play Garçon. That could be the right move. But wouldn't that just become a great buying opportunity for Marquise Goodwin?
I think it's more of okay, so your scenario that you just laid out, yes, absolutely. But I think that you might have a little tentativeness from people who saw what happened in the preseason with the Goodwin connection and be like, you know what, I'm going to hold on. I don't really. So it depends on the experience of the people you're dealing with. I usually say week 2, because if you get those 2 weeks, like a good example, go back to Kevin Ogletree. Like did that year. He was great at a waiver wire pickup, but people were going bananas for that guy over those first 2 weeks. And then obviously did nothing after that. So it's usually those 2 weeks because you get 2 big games. Or if it's week 1, what I was going to say is the confirmation bias. So let's go to the Goodwin route. Let's flip it the other way. Let's say Goodwin's been doing what he's been doing this entire preseason, comes out against the Vikings, has 7 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you don't try to sell him as a wide receiver 1 after that game, you're insane not to. And so you can kind of look at it that way too, is week 1 and week 2 are both the best. It kind of depends on what's been going on in the preseason because you get that built up excitement. And then, like you said, if you get that confirmation bias of week 1 of what's been happening in the preseason, that often presents an opportunity as well.
Kenny Stills at number 31, Cooper Kupp, Robbie Anderson, Danny Amendola, Will Fuller, Robert Woods, Pierre Garçon, Randall Cobb, Josh Gordon, Sammy Watkins. I followed that up with Alan Hearns, Anthony Miller, Mike Williams, John Ross, Rashard Matthews, Dede Westbrook, Keelan Cole, John Brown, Tyler Lockett, and Terrell Williams. You can find out the rest of the rankings up on DKPlaybook.com, or if you check the description for this video or podcast, link will be in there. So Stills and Amendola I have ranked in the same territory. If Parker is out, or just in general, if Parker plays, I know they went out and they signed Albert Wilson in the offseason, but as long as Danny Amendola is healthy, can we expect him to get like 9 targets a game?
Yes.
Like he's a PPR start for like a good floor guy.
It's for probably, I'd say more so as long as Parker is out. The only concern I have is what does the 2 wide set look like? And the 2 wide set's probably Amendola on the sideline.
But they barely even play tight ends.
No, they've been using Gesicki or I want a confirmation. Talk about confirmation. I want that. It's like people keep going back and forth. I got to say Gesicki because that's what I always heard. But in any case, they've been using him a good amount, and they've been using him a good amount where you see people starting to draft Gesicki as a mid tight end too, saying, "Oh, I want him. Look at what Evan Ingram did last year," not realizing or remembering that Evan Ingram was the last body standing, who was basically their wide receiver 1 at one point last year. Roger Lewis, who the Giants just cut, was their number 2. I mean, that's what they were looking at. So let's chill out a little bit on the tight ends for the rookie side of things. But I think that you're what you're saying, my point is they do use tight ends more than you want to give them credit for. Like they don't not use the tight end.
I just think that Danny Amendola is going to be on the field a ton. If he's on the field a ton, the Titans can bring the pass rush, and Ryan Tannehill's like, I don't want to get hurt again. Hey, Danny Amendola, you're wide open 3 feet from me. Boom. Like, that's the Danny Amendola game.
And that's why I'm with you if Devontae Parker's out. If Devontae Parker's out there, I just don't know. And this could be a telling game. That's just, I'm not, if Devontae Parker's playing in week 1, I'm not starting Danny Amendola unless I have to.
I still might. I think I would start him over Parker, which is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, I would do that as well.
Parker can't catch with his finger right now. But in these two wide receiver sets, if Parker does sit against Tennessee, I think you're going to end up seeing Kenny Stills and Albert Wilson play on the outside, and Amendola just won't be on the field regardless. So I don't think I don't think it matters whether Parker plays or not.
No, so all I'm saying is, so Jarvis Landry spent about 65% of the time. I think it was 60 to 65% of the time out of the slot last year. So he played outside a decent amount, because that was the whole point. Is like, if you're in two wide, you can have a formation where you're still having a wide receiver lined up in that slot position, despite only having two wide receivers on the field. So two wide versus two wide receivers is probably a better way to make the wording. But if you're looking at it, if it is too wide, and it's going to kind of tell what they're planning, at least from route running wise. So this is just going to be, like I said, it's going to be an intriguing game for me. I'm going to watch this game for that purpose. If Devontae Parker's out there, to see what kind of work Albert Wilson gets, to see what they do with Amendola. Do they try to send him outside wide just for a few snaps, just to kind of keep the defense guessing a little bit? Or like, what kind of snap percentage do we see for Amendola if Parker's out? That's going to be intriguing.
So I guess the big thing, rank the Rams receivers for me, PPR purposes, week one. I'm going Cooks, Kupp, then Woods.
I would go Kupp, Cooks, Woods.
Really? You would go Kupp over Cooks week one?
I am a huge Kupp fan. You can look at last year in the draft process. I had him in the top 3, and I think it was one of the few people who did. And I'm not saying that I'd be like, oh, look, it was a great season. The fact is, I like Kupp, and I think we're watching this is now preseason, but again, it's not just preseason. It's preseason last year at the end of the year. It's the off season of practices. It's the preseason going. There's a connection between Goff and Kupp. And I think this is kind of, let's talk about, we were just talking about the Dolphins, where you could see Kupp in that Jarvis Landry mold, where he's not your prototypical number one wide receiver by NFL standards and not outside a lot. But because of his talent, he ends up being the number one option. I think Brandon Cooks is facing a tough road of opponents this year. I think Brandon Cooks is what Brandon Cooks is. He's a big play where you're not going to see a ton of receptions for him. I would have Cooks higher in non-PPR, but I think if we're talking about PPR, I think Kupp is going to be Jarvis Landry for Goff as Landry was for Tannehill or for whoever was playing at Dolphins quarterback.
Well, I think we're talking about like the lesser version of a lot of these guys right now. So if we call Cooper Kupp the Jarvis Landry to Jared Goff, that target share is just not going to be the same. He's not going to end up with as many targets and being force-fed like Jarvis Landry was. He's like, let's say 75 or 80% of that. Like Cooks, Cooks is on this list, Fuller's on this list, and Sammy Watkins is on this list too. They're all like the minor league versions of Tyreek Hill, where you're playing Tyreek because he gets targets, plus he is such a talent. And these guys, you just don't know if the targets are going to be there. But I mean, maybe these guys are like the lower end of Marquise Goodwins. Maybe that's a better way to put it, because Hill is sort of on an island by himself as the ultimate type of this guy. Goodwin's somewhere in between, and the Fullers and the Sammy Watkins, even on the same team as Tyreek Hill, are in that mold as well. And I would put Brandon Cooks and Kenny Stills, for all that matter, in that same boat.
Actually, to be honest with you, going into week one, I would start Kenny Stills over Brandon Cooks.
I don't know if I have the guts to do that.
But
I'm a coward, though, so.
Kenny Stills, now for 3 years running, has been definitively better than Devontae Parker and a wide receiver 3, who Devontae Parker might not be out. If Devontae Parker's not playing in week one, Kenny Stills is going to see 4% of that target share.
Robbie Anderson, Monday night against the Lions. There is going to be no Jermaine Kearse, so that leaves Robbie Anderson, Little Quincy, and Terrell Pryor. That should be a whole lot of fun. I would go Anderson, then I would go Enunwa. I wouldn't want to play Enunwa, but I would in a pinch over Terrell Pryor.
But seriously, I hope you're not starting Quincy. Like, what kind of pinch are you doing if you're starting Enunwa?
I don't know. We're in the 16-team league. I might have to draft him.
Which, by the way, I don't think we're going to finish in time.
I think we're in like the 8th round now.
Which is sad. This is this damn draft. But anyway, the only one I can see in Numa is like some of these people, and I'm not trying to be cruelty, but like some people tweet me and they're like, hey, who's my best third wide receiver? And I'm like, what did you do in your draft? Like, did you not show up? Did you not draft until the 6th round?
No. If you didn't show up for your draft and you got auto drafted, you would have a much better 3 wide receiver set than have Quincy Enunwa be one of those top 3.
See,
but I don't want to throw it. But here's the thing. I don't want to throw it out like Enunwa might be garbage. He could be good on this team.
No, look, Enunwa was good. Enunwa was. Why do I keep putting the S on it? Enunwa, what? I think it's a lot to try to say. Enunwa
just say like I do. Just keep calling him Little Quincy.
All right, little Quincy, if you look at it, and that hybrid role from back when he was like that tight end wide receiver, he's still going to play this role. Even if Curse was out there, he was going to play that role. And I felt better about Nunwa in that role than Curse being, whatever Curse is. And you want to talk about poor man's versions of people. Curse is like even the poor man's version of the Goodwin and Cooks. Like he's even lesser than that. So I felt better about little Quincy.
Anything in this 40 to 50 range goes Hearns, Anthony Miller, Mike Williams, John Ross, Rashard Matthews, Dede, Keelan Cole. I know you like Cole better than Dede. I like Dede better than Keelan Cole. We've been through this. John Brown, Tyler Lockett, Terrell Williams. Is there anyone from the bottom of this list that you think does deserve to be moved up?
Not moved up. I just think we'll bring up this name. Actually, Mike Williams. We'll talk about when we get to tight end.
Okay. That's interesting.
Well, because Antonio Gates, we have to talk about the situation.
We will talk about Antonio Gates, but like if you had to play one of the Williams on the Chargers, which one would it be this week?
This week, it would be Tyrell. I still think Mike Williams is the better long-term, and I actually have him higher in seasonal, so I guess we'll just talk about it now. I got a lot of questions. People are saying that Antonio Gates signing hurt Mike Williams, and because they're talking about the touchdowns.
Yes, the answer is yes to that question.
No, I don't think it's that much, honestly, because you were still looking like – again, I'm going to go back with the Hunter Henry situation. Is the Hunter Henry injury did more for Tyrell, in my opinion, than it did for Mike, because I am still going to this is one of my hills that I'll die on. Mike Williams was a top 10 pick. Mike Williams was argued with some people as being better than Corey Davis last year. Mike Williams missed the season because of a back injury. This is still a top 10 pick. This is still a super talented wide receiver who is, at this point of his career, in contention to be the best red zone option on this team right now. People have forgotten how good Mike Williams is. He's going to be the number 2 wide receiver. Whether that happens immediately, I don't think it'll be because of the snap percentage. They're already talking about Tyrell Williams is still in front of him. So for this week, I would go with Tyrell Williams, but I don't think the Gates signing affects Mike Williams that much, because I think it hurts Tyrell more than it does Mike, as the situation before did.
Oh, I didn't bring up that the Saints cut Jonathan Williams, which was shocking to me.
Yeah,
I kept taking him late in drafts. They signed him to the practice squad, so we might be able to see him again, though. But they signed Mike Gillislee after he got cut by the Patriots. Any chance you play Gillislee? Like as just a pure flyer if you had no one in a deep league?
That was the name I was trying to think of. Somebody was trying to tweet me last night asking if I should start blank, and I think it was like Mac Gillislee or somebody else. And
well, Marlon Mack is not practicing, so Gillislee might be the play.
Right. But here's the thing is I kind of plugged in Gillislee for Jonathan Williams numbers, but let's be realistic about what he's going to do. Let's put Mark Ingram in this situation. Let's bring Mark Ingram back just for this argument.
Ingram? Can we not? Can we not bring back Mark Ingram?
No, I know you hate that, but let me just paint the picture here. Is Mark Ingram out there is going to get 60 to 70 rushing yards and a decent shot at the touchdown? Like he's not rushing for 130 regularly. He's not seeing that kind of workload because he splits with Kamara. So let's chill out a little bit before we just put Mark Ingram's numbers on the replacement, and then also understand the workload that he's probably going to see. Gillislee, even if it's him and not Boston Scott now after they made that change, what is he going to get? 10, 12, 13 carries. So now you're talking about, 40 to 50 yards, and you hope he gets a touchdown. Do you really want to start that week 1? No.
No, obviously you don't, but in a pinch, it wouldn't be the worst play in the world.
No, it would be better than Marlon Mack.
There we go. See, this is all we need to talk about. Let's move to quarterbacks. We have Deshaun Watson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, Pat Mahomes, Drew Brees, and Marcus Mariota. You don't like Mariota because we just went through that, but anyone else?
Well, I guess Miami, I don't mind.
Who in that top 10 doesn't deserve to be in the top 10, according to you?
Patrick Mahomes.
Really? I just think this is I think this game is going to be so high scoring. It's going to be ridiculous.
I think even with the injuries, the Chargers defense is just too good.
Listen, hold on. I just can see this being like a 3-touchdown, 3-pick game for Mahomes.
I don't see it being a 3-touchdown game. I see the 3 picks, the potential. And that was going to be what I was going to lay out for you, is because we're talking about the pass rush. We're talking about the pass rush. And if you watch Patrick Mahomes in the preseason, it's the same thing we had concerns about when Patrick Mahomes was drafted. The kid has some of the best overall talent, innate ability. And you talk about anybody at the quarterback position. I'm talking about anybody, not like in the draft class. We know that. And landing in the situation with Andy Reid was terrific for him and his development. he still has mechanical flaws and decision-making issues. And if you saw that during the preseason, there's balls that he threw to Tyreek Hill that should have been intercepted. There was balls thrown elsewhere that should have been intercepted that weren't. And, we're talking about now getting into that range of interceptable passes and kind of getting to like the high-level statistics. You don't even need to do that. Just watch Patrick Mahomes. You're talking about a pass rush that's going to get after the quarterback like the Chargers do, even with the loss in the secondary that they have injury-wise with Verrett. This is still a team that I see having a 3-interception game, but Patrick Mahomes only has 1 touchdown.
Okay, so you'd be more down on Patrick Mahomes. I'm willing to roll the dice a little bit on what could be shootout potential because we know that the Kansas City's defense ain't stopping anybody. So it's
it's definitely not.
It's going to be throwing bonanza, and I would take the 3 touchdowns with the 3 picks. That's my problem with Drew Brees this week. Like Brees is fine, but they're gigantic favorites against Tampa. Like how often is Brees really he's going to have to do all of his passing damage in the first half because it's just going to be handoff city after that.
That's a fair point, but I don't know if you're talking about the fact that he doesn't have the running back situation with no Mark Ingram. That I don't know, 1, if they even get it to that lead, and then 2, if he stops passing this week, or at least for the first couple weeks with this situation of no Mark Ingram. But Drew Brees, whatever. This is a situation you talk about. I don't like Marcus Mariota, but I like him against the Dolphins enough that I would start Marcus Mariota over Patrick Mahomes this week.
Oh, so we got some we got some breaking news here as we're going through this. By the way, we got Josh Gordon hamstring back at practice. No word on his viability yet, but a statement from Steelers general manager Kevin Colbert. Said, "We are disappointed Le'Veon Bell has not signed his franchise tender and rejoined his teammates. Coach Tomlin and the coaching staff will continue to focus on preparing the players for our roster for our regular season opener on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns." Shots fired. I think he's just trying to hurry him up to get back to camp here.
No, because they know that with no Le'Veon Bell that their offense, I don't care, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, you lose Le'Veon Bell, you're losing a good percentage of your offense.
This is true. Other quarterbacks in this, wait.
I thought you were Marlon Mack missed practice, so it sounds like he's definitely going to be out.
We'll see what happens on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, I already had him as not playing, so
I know. I'm just giving you that update too.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you for that. I think I said that earlier, but you're catching up to where we're at here in the rapid fire world of me reading the internet as we go.
I'm looking at it right now. This was reported at 11:10 by George Bremer on Twitter that he missed practice.
There we go. I've been looking. I'm telling you. I've been keeping up on this stuff. That 11 to 20 range. I got Luck, Stafford, Dalton, Keenum, Goff, Roethlisberger, Alex Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, the Fitzmagic, and then Nick Foles. As it pertains to the guys that I have ranked and the guys that I don't have ranked, I do not have Carson Wentz ranked. I do have Andrew Luck ranked. He's practicing on Monday with his foot injury. It looks like he's going to be fine. Am I just a sucker for being like, hey, Big Ben's on the road, I don't trust him?
That was actually going to be my question for you. Is that why you have him that low?
Yeah, that's why he's that low.
I mean, it's honestly, the numbers are impossible to ignore. It's now 4 straight seasons after being 3 straight seasons last year. People saying, oh, it doesn't matter, whatever. I'm not, whatever. People are going to take it how they're going to take it. I actually asked Mike Tomlin about that of course he tried to play the coach and avoid the question, but a little bit of the insight was, he said, people play more comfortable at home, sleeping in your own house. He's like, but there's something that we do. We pay attention to the crowd noise and the situation on the field. They're always tougher to play on the road, which kind of lends itself, if you want to read the tea leaves or try to through the lines or whatever cliche you want to throw out there, is that as mentioned by some people, I forget who it was, the speculation was they run under center more on the road than they do at home. So that offense and the effectiveness of Ben Roethlisberger takes a hit. Also, percentage of snaps as they run a few less on the road. So all those culminated together. I think it's fair to say you have concerns about Ben Roethlisberger, especially you have him at this ranking, especially if Le'Veon Bell's not playing. Then you talk about a legitimate concern. I wouldn't go that far where you have him, but I mean, now we're kind of like, is it really going to be Ben Roethlisberger? I would feel better about Ben Roethlisberger than Case Keenum, but I think I would still feel better about Jared Goff. It's kind of like he's in that range.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I have. Like I said, I have Goff one spot before him. I just like, we talked about the Seattle defense. I think they're going to be able to throw all over them. So I do like Case Keenum, the first rung out in Denver at home as favorites. I think it's a nice spot in the game. And I think that Russell Wilson can keep up on the scoreboard at least enough to make Keenum continue to throw, that the pass attempts will be pretty high. So I do like Keenum this week. Do you have a problem with Andy Dalton, number 13? The Colts defense is putrid.
No, the Colts defense is putrid, and I don't have a problem with that. And I know my problem is Matt Ryan at 25.
I just look at the game from the playoffs last year, and maybe that's just not something to really go with. I actually like Atlanta in that game. They've already gone down from 4-point underdogs to 2.5-point underdogs. A lot of that has to do with it really looks like Carson Wentz isn't going to play. I just see this being more of like a back and forth, knock 'em out type of game where like people think it'll be high scoring, but the final score will be like 17-14.
Yeah, I could see that, but also I'm not starting Dak Prescott over Matt Ryan.
Dak Prescott could be super sneaky here, and the best thing about Dak Prescott is you always get those built-in yards on the ground that always makes his floor a little bit higher than someone like Matt Ryan. That if the games are equal, or even a little bit less than equal for Dak Prescott, that bonus for him with the potential rushing touchdown. But even throw that out, the potential for him to rush and gain like 4 points on the ground that way really does help mitigate the talent gap.
That's fair, and that's a fair point. But now we're talking about, do you just only care about floor at your quarterback? I'm going to go for a little bit more upside.
Here's the thing. The reason that I have these guys ranked in the 20, I don't want to play any of them.
Oh, that's true. And hopefully you don't have to for the first. If you're talking about starting those quarterbacks, I don't know what you did.
Wait, I mean, you could pick up Nate Peterman and play him.
No.
Probably not the best move.
You're probably better just leaving the quarterback position empty.
That might not be a terrible. That's the new move. You have zero RB just instead of like streaming quarterback. Yeah, just not even zero quarterback. No quarterback strategy.
Honestly, it was better than playing Nathan Peterman in that situation last year.
That's true, and I think Cuss is back on the Nate Peterman train. He was Cuss start of the week against the Chargers. I think he's going to be back in against the Ravens.
No, forget it. The toast is done. If the Ravens, if they somehow lose week one, this is going to be the worst week one survivor we've probably seen in history.
You got to go Ravens week one survivor, right?
There's no question you have to.
Oh, that'll be a whole lot of fun when I'm been eliminated from my league. People like
everybody.
Well, the move always happens like there's always like the one obvious week one pick, and people are like, well, I'm going to save them for later in the year, or I'm going to go contrarian. And then they pick like the third most confidence game, and that team gets bounced. So you lose like everyone did with Houston against Jacksonville last year. Like Houston, they were just like, oh, Houston's going to be so fired up because of the flooding that happened in Houston. Like they might all just be like kind of out of it because they've been dealing with flooding for the past like 2 weeks. Maybe Jacksonville's a little bit better, and then boom, you get eliminated from Eliminator.
Right.
Let's go to tight ends. Gronk, number one. Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm going in on a limb with that one. Kelsey, Ertz, Olsen, Burton, Reed, Delaney, Jimmy Graham, Kyle Rudolph, Jack Doyle. Guys that I have probably playing: Luke Wilson with his knee, Antonio Gates because he just signed. Evan Ingram is practicing on Monday with his concussion. George Kittle looks like he'll play. Probably not. Vance McDonald and Deion Sims with a concussion. That's another positive for Trey Burton. No Shaheen, no Deion Sims around. And Ed Dixon with his quad, who's placed on IR to be eligible to return, making Nick Vannett the new starting tight end for the Seahawks, which is a better DraftKings play than anything for like the league min than putting him into your fantasy lineup. 11 to 20, I got Eifert, Ingram, Ben Watson, David Njoku, George Kittle. Who else do I got here? Ricky Seals-Jones, Blake Jarwin, Dallas Goedert, Cameron Brate, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Guys I'm too high on, guys I'm too low on. It's tight end. It's kind of a roll of the dice.
Yeah, there's not really anybody here that I'm that upset about. Like Ben Watson, because it's a PPR, I could say is a little bit too high, but he's always a good bet for a touchdown. And the tight end in that situation, really, it's just I think they're all decent options. The only one I think is we haven't even mentioned his name yet is the one I would have the question about.
Gates?
Yeah.
Yeah, would you really play Gates week one? Just signed off the street?
I would play him over Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I definitely would play him there. I'd play him over Dallas Goedert.
I think Goddard's in a really good position without, like, not a really good position, but I think he's in a higher...
And Blake Jarwin. 100%.
Blake Jarwin might end up with, like, 18 catches week one. He just might be the guy Dak Prescott throws to.
Nah, I think that's the scenario you're trying to paint out. I think that's the Cole Beasley situation.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, if we're just talking about, like, what's best case scenario for Antonio Gates? He gets 2 targets and they're both caught for touchdowns?
I don't think it'll be just 2 targets. I think Gates will be out there more than, I'd say 50% of the snaps.
I don't think he's going to play. Like,
you don't think he'll be that much?
No. What sort of condition is 90-year-old Antonio Gates in?
Okay, I guess I'm optimistic. I guess we'll have to watch the reports. I'm assuming he kept him. This is the scenario. Go back to Michael Strahan way back when the Giants. I think this was happening the entire time. They knew it was happening this entire time. That's why the Chargers didn't do anything else at their tight end situation, running out like Brandon Bowman and all the rest of them. And they knew this was going to happen. Gates at this point of his career was just saying, you know what? I'm not playing the preseason. I'll see you in week 1.
Potentially, but I just think that when you're that old and you're kind of a heavier guy to begin with, the actual conditioning that would take to be required to play 50% of the snaps, if you're like not in perfect cardio shape, it's going to be tough for a guy of his age and his size. Like I think he's just going to be in like red zone packages.
Well, no, yeah, he's definitely now like a lesser version of Jimmy Graham was last year. It's just you're not going to get more than like 500 yards on for the season. You're just hoping he gets 7 or 8 touchdowns. I'm just going to go for hoping he scores a touchdown. Again, we'll see the practice reports. I'm just assuming he kept himself in shape with that scenario that I just painted there was that he's, been in shape, knew he was going to play. He just didn't want to deal with the preseason, didn't want to deal with the OTAs and the practices and all the nonsense like Strahan did for the Giants a bunch of years at the end of his career. And that's where I'm going with this. Now, if he's out there in practice and all the reports are like he looks slow or he's trying to get back into game shape, you hear somebody report that, then I wouldn't feel good about it.
Okay. So other than that, like Jarwin and Goddard are just more or less like sleepers for me. I think they could have good weeks. And without Elshon around on the Thursday nighter, I think that
wait, there is one more.
Oh, well, what is the other one?
OJ Howard is going to have a better season than Cameron Brate. OJ Howard is going to be your fringe tight end one this year.
I don't think so. I think they're gonna eat each other and eat from the overall total. So it all depends. It's not like Cameron Brate's bad.
No, but he's not that good, and it was essentially a 1-year contract. There's zero guaranteed money, zero dead cap after this year. OJ Howard, it's the second season. He is one of the best talents in the NFL. Like, you just laid out tight ends in the NFL and started doing a list, he'd probably be inside the top 10. He's that good. I think that the Buccaneers are going to see that they made a mistake even doing a 1-year contract with Cameron Brate.
Potentially so, but I think one of the big things between them always comes down to OJ Howard's a way better blocker than Cameron Brate. So
right, which is now again, that was my counter. That's why I didn't like him last year. You're 100% right. I made that argument and said, don't draft OJ Howard because if you have both of them on the field, he's going to be the one that's asked to block. Now we're moving into the second season. I think he's also grown as a pass catcher. He has that. Look at Fitzpatrick last year. Fitzpatrick liked him more than Jameis Winston did. So you have that going for him. And now he's in the second year. I think that because he blocks and he has grown as a receiver, he will actually be on the field in the 1 tight end sets more than we saw last year.
I guess the thing is, I'm trying to say, I don't want to play either of them. But if someone put a gun to my head, then I would play Cameron Brate this week.
I would go OJ Howard. So there you go. You asked me. I'm trying to pick out. This is tight end.
Listen, and we're debating here, all right?
I'm trying to find names. It's stupid tight end. If you have to go past tight end 14, I feel bad. 15, I feel bad for you.
Fair enough. Let's end this out with defenses. Right now, I got Baltimore against Nate the Great coming in at number 1. I had them number 1 anyway, so it was fine. Jacksonville, Rams, Saints, Vikings, Broncos, Detroit, Tennessee, Chargers, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Houston, Giants, New England, Atlanta, Cincinnati. I think Tennessee is the one that no one owns that you can pick up and go stream. Them are the Lions.
No, I was going to say that are the Lions. A lot of people are really high on the Lions this week. I think where you have them is a better spot. I see a lot of people put them inside the top 3 or top 4.
That's dicey. Darnold might be good.
That's one, but the Lions defense isn't that great. Like, we're not talking about like, hey, this is just, a pretty good defense and like a nice secondary or like a nice front. And, they just need a good matchup and they're facing the bill. Like, there's just so many scenarios here where, they have a piece or 2 on defense and this is a good matchup on paper, but to put them ahead of I'm looking right now, I wouldn't put them in front of Jacksonville, who faces Eli Manning, who could throw a million turnovers. I wouldn't have them in front of Denver. So you have them in a spot where they should be. People ranking them higher. You put it this way, what you were saying about going to grab a defense, I would probably lean towards Detroit over Tennessee, but don't go out there and drop somebody like the Saints for them.
Yeah, so like if you go to free agency right now and they're all there and you don't have to pay anything, I prefer Detroit over Tennessee. But you're right, Tennessee is going to be cheaper and they're probably far more available in leagues going into week 1 too.
Like, I wouldn't even drop the Patriots defense for them because I'd rather have the Patriots for the long haul and not risk somebody else grabbing the Patriots.
I mean, I'm not opposed to harboring 2 defenses on a weekly basis, not every single week, but if I know that one of my defenses has like a really shitty matchup coming up, that like even this week, like if you have the Chargers, I don't mind the Chargers this week because I think they can get to Mahomes, and even if they do give up a lot of points, the fantasy scoring should still be there. Let's say you were just terrified of Kansas City, you did not want to play them. You could pick up Tennessee this week and then roll out the Chargers next week at Buffalo. That would work out.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I think, again, to go back to what I was saying, is more about don't drop your defense to go make that kind of 1 week move.
Yeah, but I'm okay with benching what is known as a good defense if you don't like the matchup for a streamer defense that has a really good matchup for that 1 week. Then you just move on from the other defense.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Any final words from you, Mr. Jake Ciely?
It feels good to be doing this again. That's all. I mean,
it's nice being back in the flow of everything. I feel like it took us a few minutes to get into it, but now we're going back and forth. And shockingly, it seems like we're relatively on. I know you don't have your ranks up yet, but it feels like we're on similar pages. Receiver, like the
week 1.
What's that?
It's week 1. I mean, you can't, like, if you're not starting the people you drafted in week 1, I would hope that we were on the same page with a lot of these people.
All right, well, tell everyone where they can check out your work, because you're at The Athletic now, if people didn't know, so congratulations on that. You got the podcast back. Pimp the entire thing.
I always do. You know that. Well, here's the easiest is just go to All In Kid and follow me because I tweet out everything. But if you want to go to The Athletic, the fantasy section, you can still get 30% off if you haven't yet. It's under the fantasy launch. I have check the link. It's in all my links and all my articles. So go check that out. And then, yes, the podcast is back. All In Sports. It's myself. It is Jake Ciely with random guests all the time. So it's not a definitive, here's my co-host. I'm kind of going down your path. It's going to be somebody new every single time.
See, I find that makes it more fun because people keep listening, thinking the guy that they want to hear could be on the show, and they get all pissed off. But after they download it, once they download it, I don't really care what they do with the show. But or they click on it and be like, no, it's Ciely today, not Cuss. Said no one ever. But or if it's Cuss.
You could do the really tricky thing that I found out people are doing is if you go to iTunes and subscribe, unsubscribe, and subscribe, it actually counts as 2.
Yeah, I know. I've been telling people to do that.
Oh, okay. Never mind that.
Yeah, I'm well ahead of the rigging the algorithm for that. If people are listening on iTunes, they heard that before the show started. So we're all good.
My face just got really red. What the hell?
I don't know. Maybe the light in front of you is just too hot, sir.
Well, it is kind of hot in here. We got the cookout today because it's Labor Day.
It is Labor Day. I mean, we're in media. We work. And people need their week 1 rankings on a Monday.
They do.
All right, so that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Please give the episode a like, go to the comments section, leave your DK handle, and tell me which ranking you hate the most. Hate it. Mayo, you're a moron. I hate this and I hate you. This is what I expect to see. But as long as you leave your DK handle, you're in the drawing. After you give the episode a like, by the way, you give it a downvote, you're out. So you got to give it a like, then get all triggered with me. Leave your DK handle. You're in the draw for $20 DK. Also, go to @thepme on Instagram. I have a photo of this set right before I started. Give the episode a double tap for that heart. Leave your DK handle in the comment section. Boom, you're in a draw for $20 DK as well. Gupscorner.com, the Super 7, $100 to enter. It's well worth. It's $100 for all 17 weeks. Like, the per week investment is not super high, but it is a tremendous amount of fun picking out your 7 favorite spreads against me, against Cust, against Jeff, against everyone. And you can go beat the crap out of us because we're all terrible at it. And we'll be doing the show on it on Wednesday. So this week, obviously, the rankings today be out on Tuesday next week. Tuesday, DraftKings breakdown with Drew Dinkmeyer and Mike Leone from dailyroto.com. Use the promo code THEPME right now at dailyroto.com to get yourself 10% off. Wednesday, picks with Feinberg and Cust. Friday, injury updates plus DraftKings Millionaire Maker ownership. Then Sunday, live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Me, Gary, and Cust breaking down all the injuries, all the matchups, and taking your questions, getting you set for week 1. That'll happen almost every Sunday. There's going to be a Sunday I want to take off at some point. I have a wedding to go to somewhere in October. I'll figure that out. But Jake, will you be joining me Monday mornings live for the waiver wire? Yes or no?
What if I said no?
I gotta find a replacement real quickly.
You already know what the answer is.
I do.
So yes, we'll be back on Monday.
Back on Mondays, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, live. I like this live. We can go through the show, we can do the recaps, the injuries, and answer people's questions all in one.
Yep. Like the news just broke. Nick Foles officially the starter for Week 1.
Boom. See, that's why I was waiting for that news to break, so I had to do a super long extra here.
Yeah, so you're too smart for us.
Yeah, I'm from marginally in the future, not far enough that I can actually make it financially beneficial for myself, but enough to know when like crap like that happens.
Oh yeah, the one superpower I could have would definitely be make that like the time travel. That's a superpower.
See, that's not even a superpower. You just know how to bend space and time.
It is, according to some people, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
Nerd.
Yeah. Go run your spreadsheet, nerd. We'll figure this out later. Anyway, that's Mondays with Ciely, and then I'll have the entire schedule tweeted. All the rankings in the description and up on DKPlaybook.com. They'll be updated periodically through the week to make sure that they're live in terms of injuries and where you need to play people in your start sits this week. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PME. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience, obviously on YouTube, but also on iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. Wherever you can download podcasts, you can find the Pat Mayo Experience. Leave a review, too, while you're at it. Why not? Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck in Week 1. We're back. It's football time, all right? I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!